All right, let's get started. Good afternoon again, everybody. Thank you so much for making the time to join us today. What we're going to be talking about today is how you can add time back into your recruiter's days. And because we're doing a Halloween theme, we're talking about carving out, just like you carve a pumpkin, some of the inefficiencies that recruiters deal with today. Before we get started, first of all, thank you again for making the time. We absolutely love questions. I would absolutely love for this webinar to be interactive. Ask us questions via Q&A, via the chat anytime. I'll take questions as we go along, but we'll certainly also save time for questions towards the end of the webinar. Also, this presentation, as well as this recording, will be distributed afterwards. So don't worry about taking screenshots or taking any kinds of notes. I'd rather you be interactive and ask us actual real life questions about what you might be finding as inefficient in your recruiter's world today, and we can certainly have a discussion around that. So what's our agenda today? I'm going to start by giving you guys a 30-second overview about what Sense does, but right after that, we're going to immediately jump into some of the inefficiencies that the recruiters suffer with today, and why some of these present a major opportunity for your staffing company. What can you do about them to sort of, find yourself, get ahead of your competition? And we're also going to talk about some of these common inefficiencies. I've bucketed them in 4 or 5 different buckets. Hopefully, a lot of them will resonate with all of you. We'll talk about all of these buckets, and we'll talk about what you can do to solve them. And then, of course, we'll keep some time for Q&A towards the end. Before we get started, my name is Pankaj. I am one of the founders of Sense, for those of you who've not met me. Before I founded Sense, I ran staffing companies for about 15 years. So I come very much from your world, and very much enjoy actually dealing with day-to-day problems that staffing companies deal with and how technology can make you more efficient. And as far as Sense is concerned, we started the company nearly 7 years ago now with a singular mission of building the first talent engagement platform that was designed specifically for the staffing industry. We've stayed really true to that mission so far. We have over 800 customers now, nearly all of which are staffing companies. We also serve some of the largest staffing companies in the US, 7 of the top 10 firms in the US, and over 90 of the largest staffing companies. These are companies as recognized by SIA with over $100 million in revenue today use Sense. We're also SOC 2 Type 2 certified, which is very rare for a company our size, but it tells you about our commitment on how seriously we take our customers' data. Along this journey, we've raised about $90 million in capital from some blue chip investors like Accel, Google, and SoftBank. So that's a little bit about Sense for those of you who are not familiar with the company. All right, but let's jump right in. So first of all, why do recruiters today suffer with inefficiencies? What's going on in their world? The biggest thing is, obviously, these are some of the challenges that hopefully you identify with. There are too many candidates and too little time. More and more candidates are now open to work and looking for work, but companies are either reducing or freezing the hiring of recruiters. They aren't expanding their recruiting teams, which means there is even more demand on a recruiter's time now. Most recruiters also spend a majority of their time overloaded with administrative tasks. They're either just prospecting or keeping the ATS up to date. Instead of nurturing relationships with candidates or customers for that matter, they just have a lot of administrative tasks. We're also going through, we're also now living in a world where candidates expect high touch treatment. They not only expect it, they demand it. I've talked a lot about the consumerization of staffing. A candidate now expects the same behavior and experience from your website as they expect from Amazon.com. They want you to remember their preferences. They want you to reach out to them using a channel that they want, whether it's a text message, whether it's an email, a survey, or a chat bot. And you now have to do that for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of candidates. And then, of course, there is this focus on getting things done rather than getting the right things done. And often that can lead to even more inefficiencies. So that's the recruiter's world today, but we'll dig into what these all look like in the real world and how you can carve them out, to essentially increase productivity and increase ROI. And so, first of all, I mentioned this in my agenda. Why do these present a significant opportunity? Well, number one, technology has significantly advanced now, which means you absolutely can use that as one of your secret weapons. We know some of our customers who leverage the Sense technology would absolutely report back to us that they've reduced 30% in their cost to hire. That represents every single thing that they're doing: recruiter time, screening, scheduling, interviewing. We'll talk about all of that, but they're reducing 30% in cost per hire. They're increasing their net promoter score. So people are actually 2 to 3 times more satisfied with the experience that they're getting with this staffing company. And then, of course, they're freeing up anywhere between 40 to 50% of recruiter time itself. We also saw, during the pandemic, that companies that actually invested in digital transformation, they invested in strengthening their processes, have been able to scale much better. They've actually been able to build processes that now allow them to hire at scale, reach out to everybody, not just leave candidates in a black hole, so on and so forth. So there is significant opportunity here. All right, so let's get started, and start talking about the meat of this pumpkin here, right? What are some of these common inefficiencies that you can carve out? Let's take a closer look at them. The number one that I'm going to start with is meetings. When I say meetings, these could be interviews, these could be screening conversations, these could be actual interviews with the hiring manager or with the recruiter. But essentially, the idea that meetings today are one of the problems. There is back and forth scheduling. It might not surprise you to know, but there is actual research. If you Google it, it takes 6.7 emails today 6.7 emails back and forth to schedule any meeting. We're actually doing too many meetings, and all of them also tend to be inefficient. So, the amount of time that we're actually spending playing phone tag, responding to email, this process can take days. This process can be long, where it just drags out time to hire simply because you're trying to get, a meeting scheduled with somebody. And don't forget, once you schedule this meeting, you may actually find out that this person, wasn't a good fit at all. So you could spend all this time in back and forth only to find that a candidate wasn't a great fit. There are also a ton of meetings we're trying to do, and I'll talk about how all of these can be, how you can make all of these more efficient. So what's the solution? Yeah, well, you can automate your meetings, you can automate your interview scheduling, you can automate, any kind of conversation that you're trying to have with your candidates. So first of all, there are obviously a range of tools that exist today that help you do that. Sense has an interview scheduling platform that helps you do this automatically. So anytime you're talking to a candidate, whether that is over email, over text message, or a chat bot, you can absolutely include an automated scheduling link in it. That scheduler automatically connects with your calendar. It'll give the candidate the option of simply clicking on that link, looking at the times that you are available, and scheduling a meeting. This immediately takes away this entire inefficiency of going back and forth 5 or 6 times. Are you available on Tuesday? No, not Tuesday, Wednesday, this time, that time. It takes all of that away. Also, we've noticed that when you put the power in the hands of the candidates, they are the ones who actually picked up a time that they want to talk to you. They're more likely to show up. This wasn't a time that worked for the recruiter. This was a time that worked for the candidate. They're more likely to keep that commitment. So first of all, you can certainly just do automatic scheduling. Secondly, you can use a chat bot to be available 24/7. Candidates obviously want to work on their own time. If somebody can only talk to you after hours and your recruiters are not available, they can still talk to a chatbot. They can complete a conversation over a text-based chatbot or a website-based chatbot. But either way, they're able to have a natural language conversation 24/7 and then schedule themselves for a conversation. This is a use case that we see a lot in the healthcare industry. In the healthcare industry, oftentimes people's timings are not what we are used to. They're not 9 to 5, their breaks are different. We oftentimes see people having conversations with a digital assistant at midnight. That's the only time they're able to talk to somebody. That's when they're having a natural language conversation. That's when they're going through the process and figuring out what kind of jobs are open, and if they are if they're willing to be interviewed for one of those jobs, and then they can schedule one of those meetings. So please know that the idea that you can 100% automate this can add a huge ROI to your firm. So let me give you one example. We have a customer, obviously a rather large customer, but we have a customer that is currently scheduling 25,000 meetings every quarter. Now, even if you assume that scheduling and going back and forth with a meeting will take 10 to 12 minutes, although in the real world it takes a lot more than that, they're saving 5,000 hours per quarter, or 20,000 hours a year, which is the equivalent of 10 man years. So this number might be mind-boggling to some of you, but this particular company is literally saving $1 million a year. That's exactly how much 10 people would cost them by simply using scheduling. Here is another real world example from a customer of ours. This customer has now seen a 35% reduction in no call, no shows in just the first 90 days of going live with meetings. They've also seen 42 hours of recruiting time that have been added, to their recruiters' calendars, and 21,000 people that they've reached out in the last 90 days. So, you can see what they've said about the meetings. When we strip our recruiters out of their back office tasks, we're freeing them to do what they're good at, which is build relationships. So this is a customer of ours called Talent Launch, which is already seeing these kind of results. All right. I want to move on to the second inefficiency, which is proper job matching. This is absolutely a problem. Today we have a ton of poor fit applicants. They're not the best fit for your job. Poor job matching today means that you're going to have applicants that don't exactly fit your job. You're going to be reviewing their resumes, pre-screening, interviewing, only to find out they weren't the best fit to begin with. It's also especially frustrating if these are good candidates, but they just happen to apply to the wrong role. Oftentimes, a recruiter is simply recruiting for their position. They only know about some of the positions that they have open. But if you had proper job matching, you're actually able to find out, well, this candidate isn't a fit for this position they applied for, but since I have 200 other positions open, they're a fit for three of the other positions that they may not have thought about. So that's another problem. And then, of course, this leads to increased job board spend. You don't find applicants that are a good fit. You're going to keep churning through more and more resumes, more and more resume views, to get to a point where you actually find people who you think are a fit for your role. And then lastly, this certainly leads to poor candidate experience, right? I mean, think about the candidate. They're going through this process, they go through this process only to be told, nah, you're not the best fit for this. So this can lead to, bad word of mouth for you. This can lead to bad reviews. This can lead to low NPS. It's basically all just a vicious cycle. What's the solution? One of the solutions here is essentially AI-powered job matching, getting the right jobs in front of the candidates. And we also talk about enriching candidate profiles, which actually enables you to do better job matching. So what do I mean by that? First of all, AI-powered job matching, which obviously learns over time, it's based on machine learning. It can nearly eradicate all problems with job matching. We have a product called Sense Discover that essentially powers job matching. It can receive personalized jobs based on the candidate data. We can use any number of factors, their positions, type, their choice of location, their choice of compensation, their choice of engagement data, if this candidate has worked with you in the past. And so essentially what they're doing is they're essentially taking any candidate who applies to you and figuring out a job within your applicant tracking system that they're a fit for, not necessarily the job that they've applied for. The second thing they can do, you can send the relevant jobs to your candidates. So maybe they haven't applied to you, but you could make this an outbound process and say, all right, I have this position that just opened, whether it's a Java developer, whether it's a picker packer, whatever the case might be, here is a position that just opened. You can do your AI powered job matching, find the top 3, top 5, top 10 candidates, and actually do an outbound outreach to them and say, hey, we just found a job that's a great fit for you. We know you're in the market, you're looking, or we know that you're finishing your assignment here in 30 days, 60 days. Here is something that you might want to consider. So you can actually do an outreach, reach out to people with a job that they're already a good fit for. The next thing is this idea of enriching candidate profiles. I've talked about this a lot over the years, and we still continue to work with customers where they have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of resumes in their database, and they're all sitting there going outdated, right? You haven't talked to these candidates in 6 months, in 12 months, oftentimes years. You're not going to be able to do good job matching if you do not have updated information. Is this person still living in the same zip code? Do they still expect the same compensation from the last time you talked to them? So on and so forth. Probably not. Probably a lot of those things have changed. So what can you do? You can enrich candidate profiles at scale. You can reach out to hundreds of thousands of people and essentially gather this information and automatically update your applicant tracking system. Hey, are you still in the job market? Yes or no? Somebody says yes, you can mark them as active within your applicant tracking system. They say no, you can mark them as passive. Could we ask you to update some of the information we have on file for you? Are you still in this zip code? How much money are you looking to make? What kind of positions do you like? So on and so forth. But you can essentially keep updating your candidates and your job profile. This can happen automatically. You set this up one time and it keeps happening automatically. Automatically, you could set up a trigger that says, anytime I haven't talked to a candidate in 90 days, 180 days, whatever your criteria is, please reach out to them, ask them to update some of the information. Your database is staying healthy, it is staying sanitized, and your job matching becomes even more powerful. Here is a real world result from a customer on what they've accomplished with job matching. They're now getting 2 to 3 times more qualified candidates. So think of this, where you might even have trouble finding 1 or 2 qualified candidates for a position. These folks are finding 3 to 6 people for that. 70% of their entire database is now activated. What that means is that 70% of everybody in their database has actually chosen to provide a piece of information that automatically updated this database without the recruiting company, without the staffing company having to do anything. And then, of course, massive increase in recruiter efficiency. So this is the CEO of Science Staffing saying they're solving an existing problem with talent acquisition that recruiters have been trying to tackle for years, which is to get proactively open jobs in front of candidates through automation. So those are the kind of real world results that you can start seeing with, with Sense, with job matching. All right, the next problem I'm going to talk about is screening candidates. So the idea that, applications will come in after hours. People are going to want to talk to you whenever they're going to want to talk to you. There are going to be unqualified candidates. You probably need to figure out a way, to collect documentation from these people. So essentially, there is a problem around screening candidates. First of all, the problem itself is that you could, as a recruiter, have dozens of calls set up to screen candidates to find out that 70, 80, 90% of those people are unqualified. Should you even be doing these calls in the first place? Obviously, the answer is no. Secondly, the idea is if somebody wants to talk to you after hours, there is just no way of doing that. So the AI-powered chatbot comes here for your rescue. One of the things the chatbot can do is it can absolutely screen anybody for any position. So it can work across hundreds of different positions and just have a customized flow depending on the position that somebody is applying for. This can happen via your website. This can happen via a text message. This can happen via a QR code. This can happen via, an outbound message, however you like. So imagine this. I'll take an example of, somebody in a commercial light industrial space. Maybe you simply need to ask them 5 or 6 quick questions. Are you authorized to work in the US? Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Have you ever been accused of a DUI? Will you subject yourself to COVID screening once a month? Are you willing to, work these certain hours or this shift? Are you willing to get paid this certain amount of money, $20.50, if that's what your customer would offer? Can you lift 50 pounds a day? Can you stand on your feet for 8 hours a day? Whatever your screening questions are, these are simple yes no questions that can be answered. And instead of you trying to screen dozens of people only to find a few of them that will fit the bill, this can all be done automatically. Customers have actually found that you can do 55% faster hiring by simply pre-screening candidates in advance, and then of course dramatically reduce your cost per hire. I talked about customized screening flows. That's a big deal. You can essentially have many different flows if your company recruits for many different kinds of positions. I just gave you an example of the light industrial space. You're asking completely different questions to a travel nurse. Are they willing to travel? What kind of accommodations are they looking for? What places do they have credentials to work? So on and so forth. When do their credentials expire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing the chatbot can do is you can actually collect all of this information. So using the chatbot, you can actually ask for these documents. You can actually ask for references. You can actually ask for a photograph of the credentials itself or a PDF file of the credentials itself. So any important documents that you are eventually going to have to collect in the application stage anyway, you can simply automate that and ask them to give it back to you right away. So we for those of you who've listened to me talk about a chatbot before, this is a product that has been just flying off the shelves, even though I say so myself. Most of our customers use a chatbot now. Most of our customers have automated their screening and scheduling, and the results have just been tremendous. It has absolutely been phenomenal. Here are the results from a large staffing company. They're a commercial light industrial firm. They're now saving 3,000 recruiter hours a month. And candidates who engage with the chatbot versus candidates who do not engage with the chatbot are 3 times more likely to get placed. So simply people who'll actually go through a pre-screening, who'll go through setting up their own meeting, 3 times more of this pool will get a placement versus these. And then here is the cool part. After hundreds of thousands of conversations, at the end of every chatbot conversation, we ask the candidate, how was your experience interacting with the bot? And people who rate it on a scale of 0 to 5, the average rating is still 4.6 on 5. People are highly, highly satisfied with this experience. I mentioned this here because a lot of people, still ask us questions about, hey, does this make it a little bit impersonal? They don't get to talk to a recruiter, so on and so forth. It's exactly the opposite. Candidates actually love the idea that they're immediately able to get their questions answered. They're immediately able to get a disposition on whether or not a company is interested in them. And they're immediately able to figure out whether this process will move forward or not. You can see the quote here from Greg. In today's environment, we must interact with candidates quickly and communicate that we're evaluating their information and moving them through the process. This really adds a layer of transparency and helps applicants understand where their application stands. So, this is just one of the hundreds of examples of customers today who are using the chatbot. All right, the next inefficiency we're going to talk about is automating candidate communication. And we can talk about this all day long because there are hundreds and hundreds of kinds of communications that you do with the candidate. But what are some of the inefficiencies here? First of all, there is no time that the recruiter now has to send one-on-one messages or the amount of one-on-one messages that they do need to send out to succeed. If they're sourcing for a position and they need to talk to 200 people or they need to reach out to 200 people, it's impossible for them to send all of those messages in a personalized fashion. This, certainly limits recruiters from focusing on high value tasks, obviously, and it slows down time to hire. So these are huge problems, to individually reach candidates. There is no way for you to say, I'm going to sit down and customize every email based on what I read, but you are still spending, millions of dollars getting these candidates from the candidate job boards into your database. So you and the candidates expect for you to reach out to them in a personalized fashion, and that's exactly what you want to try and do. So what's the solution? Well, first of all, you can automate all of these communications. You can reach out to candidates one-on-one or one-to-many. You can do that using an email or an SMS. So even if you were reaching out to 200 candidates and saying, hey, I came across a position that might be a good fit for you, let me know if you're interested, all of these messages will go out personalized by saying, hey, John, hey, Katie, hey, Stephanie, I reached out, I came across your profile and this job that might be a good fit for you. So first of all, you can personalize all of these, all of this communication. Secondly, you can actually create templates. So you can actually create templates and specific journeys, which means you're only creating a flow one time. When you're recruiting somebody, you're saying, I want my first email to say this, I want my second email to say that, I want my third email to say this. You create this one time, and then it is applicable to thousands of your candidates after that. You certainly can also do this at critical junctures across across the candidate life cycle. So anytime you feel like your candidates drop off from this process, they haven't heard from you in 3 days, they're likely to get dropped off. So you can automatically set up a touch point and say, if a candidate hasn't been reached out to in 2 days, once they've started the recruiting process, maybe send them a note and say, hey, we're still waiting to get some information from the hiring manager. We still haven't found out if they're interested or willing to talk to you. Hang tight, we're absolutely working on this process. If you have a question, get back to us. So you're actually letting these candidates know that they're on top of mind for you, and you're keeping them warm as they go through the recruiting process, because the best candidates will drop out of the recruiting process really quickly. You can also certainly allow them to actually ask you any kind of FAQs if they have questions around, how much does the job pay? What's your leave policy? What's your bereavement policy? What are your benefits? All of these can be automatically answered using automation. Another example, if you wanted to chasing down candidates who are ghosting you, you absolutely can figure out a way to set up a drip campaign. If somebody hasn't responded to you, you can set up multiple messages to say, start reaching out to this candidate every couple of days. Once they reply back, they're automatically taken out of this sequence. Or if you have reached out to them 3 or 4 or 5 times, then you can automatically mark them as passive. You can certainly do database refresh, or clean up candidate data. Anytime somebody comes back to you, you reached out to them, they came back to you and said, nope, I'm not looking for a job right now. Immediately update that profile. It's not an information just one of the recruiters should have. It should automatically update your database. So everything I'm talking about here, I mean, we can talk about journeys that you can keep creating, and a couple of our Sense customers today create hundreds of different journeys. All of this is set it up once and then you completely forget about it. So keep in mind that you're only setting this up one time. Any kind of journey, any kind of automation, you set this up once and then it works for your entire recruiting process post that. Here is a really large customer that actually uses this at scale. They've now engaged 15 million candidates. They have one of the largest databases in business. They're going to reach out to all of the people. They're going to engage them to redeploy them. Hey, you worked with Talent Burst in the past. We're reaching out to you to see if you want a job with us again. They've seen their business grow 2x since they implemented Sense. This is a rather large company to begin with. Imagine that they've doubled their revenue in the past, a few years that they've been working with Sense. Another unique use case with them was that they actively stayed engaged with all of their candidates, in 48 different states through the pandemic, just letting them know who's allowed to go to work and who's not, who needs to subject to a COVID screening versus not. Things were changing every single day, and they were using this communication to reach out to their candidates. You can read these results right here. We were able to double our business during the pandemic by having the right technology partners in our tech stack, and Sense is the superstar of our stack. Without contractor engagement, we would have fallen flat. Basically, the whole world was shut down, but we were using Sense. This is the CEO of Talent Burst. All right. So obviously, we've talked a little bit about automated meetings, screening, chatbot, automated journeys, text messaging. So essentially, you need to create the right tech stack. Tech can help you solve all of these problems, and it can actually transform your staffing company into a modern staffing company. Also, you need to get away from point solutions. We still come across customers who are using a separate solution for text messaging, a separate solution for email marketing, a separate solution for referrals, a separate solution for a chatbot, a separate solution for just collecting net promoter scores. All of this is obviously a lot of clutter. It also expects your recruiters to know 4 or 5 different pieces of software. And oftentimes, these pieces of software don't interact or talk with your applicant tracking system. So, not to put too fine a point on it, but you need to have a single system of engagement, perhaps something like Sense, that absolutely can become the central nervous system that sits on top of your system of record. So once you do this, you essentially are able to create a world where all of your data is in your system of record, but it is leveraged by your system of engagement to create an automated process for your staffing company. So I want to leave you all here by essentially, showing you these are the various Sense products that we have available today. We have 6 different products. Engage is our automation and journey builder product. So that's the product that's the backbone of the entire platform. You use that to create as many automations as you might like. Messaging is a text messaging product, one-on-one, one-to-many, shared inboxes, branch inboxes. You can be part of multiple inboxes, so on and so forth, but that's your automated messaging product. The chatbot product that actually helps you do screening, conversational AI, and uses natural language to move your candidates through the process. Screening and scheduling, that's the meetings product that automatically lets you screen and schedule candidates. Referrals, exactly what it sounds like, automated referrals, lets the referrer know exactly where the person that they referred is in the process, and we automatically pay people out as soon as somebody gets placed. And then Discover is the job matching product. So that's the job matching product that automatically uses machine learning to match candidates. So that's the tech stack that forms all of Sense. Most of our customers end up using all of these products. Some of them will pick up and use 3, 4, 5 of these products, but that's essentially the tech stack that can hopefully become your single system of engagement. So I'll pause here and take a few questions. I saw some of them coming in as I was speaking, but please feel free to ask me any questions that you might have from your current processes, or if you have any experience using Sense, or if you're considering doing automation, and I'll be more than happy to get into some detail around that. So one of the questions I got was, what are some of the top use cases for chatbots? Can you put chatbots on any website? Yeah, the short answer to that question is yes, you can. We certainly have customers who start by putting chatbots on their own website. So if you went to the website, you actually will be greeted by a chatbot. The chatbots are very context aware. So depending on whether a candidate is talking to them or maybe a customer is talking to them, it'll take a completely separate flow. I talked about this before, but if it is a candidate that is engaged with a chatbot, then you're automatically going to have, you can automatically get into a pre-screening conversation. If they have questions, they can automatically get into an FAQ chatbot, but you can trigger a chatbot in many different ways. Several of our customers today use a QR code. They literally print a QR code for a hiring event. They go to a hiring event, they go to a conference, somebody comes by your booth, there's a QR code, you can just scan it from the distance, fill in a few pieces of information, and there you have it, you've automatically applied. There are several organizations that have multiple steps in their apply process, and the chatbot completely takes that away as well. But you can essentially put them on any website, and you can activate a chatbot using multiple different channels and sources. Okay, another question here is, how does the scheduler or the meetings work? Does it connect to Gmail? Yeah, I think I said that earlier. The scheduler actually connects with G Suite or Office 365. So it'll work with either your Outlook or your Google Calendar. The scheduler is actually very powerful in the background. So while it connects with your calendar, you have the ability to do multiple different configurations in the admin panel. So you can literally say, even though my calendar might be empty, I'm only going to be available 9 to 12 in the mornings to do interviews, or I'm going to be only available 9 to 12 on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. You can also automatically set up the scheduler to actually do round robin. So if there are dozens of candidates coming in, you don't want to bombard just your one recruiter with all the candidates. You can literally get the first candidate to the first recruiter, the second candidate to the second recruiter, and you can keep doing this round robin until you come back to the first recruiter again. You can also optimize for time. Hey, fill 2 hours in every recruiter's calendars before you move forward. You can also optimize for a panel interview or a loop interview. Uh, just got a question that said, do we have a resume parser in the chatbot? We don't have a resume parser in the chatbot, but like I said, we have a job matching product. So the job matching product will parse your resume. That's the product that is going to parse the resume and then figure out what are the jobs that you should be matched with. So we absolutely have parsing capability. When you're actually I should qualify that. So when you're talking to the chatbot, if you ask for a resume, you automatically invoke the Sense Discover product, and right within the chatbot, we would actually be able to say, hey, based on your resume, here are 3 or 4 jobs that we suggest would be a good fit for you. So that happens right within the chatbot flow. There's another question around, does Sense manage SMS opt-ins and opt-outs? Absolutely. We've done that forever. We've done that since the product started. We not only can manage opt-ins and opt-outs, we can also respect existing opt-in and opt-out lists. So as we start working with you, if you have 1,000 people who've already opted out, we will automatically synchronize them, and those people will not get any SMS messages, even though they had opted out prior to Sense coming into your ecosystem. Can we do mass texting using Sense? Absolutely. Talked about this before. You can do one-to-many broadcast messages. We have customers today that will reach out to 100 candidates at the same time, all the way to customers who reach out to 1,000 candidates at the same time. Obviously, you want to be careful about mass texting. You do not want these messages getting caught in spam or being filtered by a carrier. So we will give you tons of best practices around making sure you stay compliant with TCPA and CAN spam laws, but you can for sure send the messages out to dozens and hundreds of people, depending on the kind of position that you're hiring for. Okay, I've got one last question here. Can you give us an example of how the ATS integration personalizes your communication? Yeah, I mean, I've got dozens and dozens of examples around this. The Sense automation product triggers based on the data within your ATS. So if any field within your ATS changes, we can absolutely trigger an automation. So, if a field basically says, hey, this candidate is active now. So if you change a field from passive to active, it could automatically put them in a journey that might have 15 different steps. You could immediately reach out to that candidate and say, hey, just found out that you're back on the market. Can we start talking about what kind of positions you want? Or better still, here is a link. Please click on this link and start engaging with us. And that link will invoke a chat bot, and they can immediately start asking questions. They can immediately start doing pre-screening, so on and so forth. So that can happen automatically and immediately. If you change any piece of information, within your ATS around start date. So somebody was starting tomorrow, something happened, you change the start date to the week after that, every single piece of automation automatically moves to the week after that. Their first day notification would now come a week after that. Their day one check-in would now come a week after that, so on and so forth. Cool. Any other questions? All right, I got a large question here. Are most of the processes you shared achievable via journeys? Follow up every 90 days or 180 days to verify candidate search parameters. Nudging a candidate who started in the recruiting process but hasn't been contacted by the recruiter with a template to keep them from falling off. Absolutely. All of these are 100% achievable by journeys. So you can certainly follow up, after 90 days, 180 days, anytime somebody has been dormant for 90 or 180 days, you can absolutely follow up with candidates. If somebody hasn't responded back to you in 2 days or hasn't been contacted in 2 days, if that's your criteria, those are absolutely trigger points that we will support. So if you feel like we started the recruiting process, nothing has happened in the last 2 days, we haven't seen any activity in the ATS for the last 2 days, automatically trigger a message that says we're still working on it, or automatically trigger a message that you're out of this process, whatever the case might be. You can absolutely do that automatically. That's correct. Okay, another question here. Would you recommend job matching triggers based on new jobs? Added matching specific. Would you recommend a daily notification or the new job matches to candidates be sent as an email notification, or to the candidate by the candidates to the candidates recruiters, or the candidate directly, or both? Yeah, so first of all, it's important to understand that we actually do bi-directional job matching. So if you have a new job opens up, we're going to match, here are the best candidates for this. And if you have a candidate that is coming out of assignment, you want to redeploy this person, we're also going to automatically say, here are the best jobs that this candidate is suited for. So that's the first point I want to make. Second, you can absolutely set up automatic triggers. So if there's a new job that a candidate gets matched with, you can automatically send that directly to the candidate, or you can send it to the recruiter so that the recruiter can verify and say, yep, I agree with this, and I'm going to send this over to the candidate. That depends on your process. Oftentimes, companies where they're trying to do mass hiring, where they're going to do hiring in a large volume, they're literally going to send this directly to the candidates. But if you're an IT or professional shop, and there are only very few candidates you want to reach out to, and you want to be 100% sure that the position you're reaching out to them for is a good fit for them, then you might introduce a step where the recruiter would verify the match, and then it goes out to the candidate. Cool. These are absolutely awesome questions. Thank you for keeping this so interactive. These are the ends of my slides. I'll stick around here for another minute or two if there are more questions that come in. But otherwise, I hope the aim of today's webinar was to essentially tell you that there are 4 or 5 things that every single staffing company is doing today. You're absolutely pre-screening your candidates. You're reaching out to people at scale. You are collecting documents from them. You're scheduling meetings with them or interviews with them. All of this is stuff that you can completely automate today. Oftentimes, when our customers would do a time study of where the recruiters spend their time, this is where they spend 60, 70, 80% of their time. Prospecting, reaching out to candidates, setting up meetings, pre-screening them, rescheduling meetings, submitting them to the hiring manager, so on and so forth. And then very little time is actually spent on talking to human beings, on making an offer, convincing somebody to join a particular company, so on and so forth. All of this is something that you can completely automate. So if you're not doing that automation today, please give us a shout, give us a call. We'd love to show you what some of your peers are doing. I said this in the beginning, but since we work with over 800 staffing companies, chances are that the 4 or 5 companies that you consider your competitors or that you look up to are probably using Sense, and we'd be more than happy to share some of the best practices that gives their business an edge. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend this time with me today. If you have more questions, my email's on the screen. But otherwise, I wish you all a very good afternoon. Thank you.